Hey everyone, Sherif here from VG247. I'm just here to give you a quick look at God of War on PC. This is the 2018 kind of reboot. It's finally coming to PC. It is Sony's third first-party exclusive to make the jump from PlayStation to PC. Of course, this all started with Horizon Zero Dawn and then Days Gone. But now we have God of War, which I might argue is the best of all three in a number of ways. I'm not going to talk over the entirety of this thing. We're just going to quickly look at what you can expect from this PC port, kind of how it runs, and really whether or not it's worth either revisiting or playing for the first time if you've never played the PS4 or PS5 updates. So this is basically a very straightforward port. It is one of the better ones, just compared to what we've seen so far from Sony and what we've seen from other companies, like the recent Final Fantasy VII Intergrade PC release, for example. It is not a horror story like that was, which is great. But what we have is pretty much standard set of options. You can see I'm just looking quickly at the options that we have available. There's a bunch of them for shadows, for ambient occlusion, for reflections. It's all pretty standard stuff. The end result of this is that the game is going to look noticeably better. Particularly the reflections are going to be sharper. The textures are going to be a little bit more refined than on PS4 and on PS5. But it's not going to introduce anything those games did not have. In my experience, ambient occlusion and pretty much reflections across the board have been improved, but it's not to the point that you can see things that you couldn't see. It's just basically putting on like a really good pair of glasses. Like everything is just a little sharper. You have obviously the benefit of running the game at native resolution, whatever that may be. There is no checkerboarding that I can see here, though I am not Digital Foundry, so you can watch their coverage if they have anything to say on that. But you can run the game at native resolution. There is support for ultra-wide, and the frame rate can go as high as 120. Like you can lock it to 120, you can lock it to 60, you can lock it to 90, you can lock it to the different segments that you're used to on a PC game. You also have, this is really good, at launch, a bunch of upscaling option. First, there is the in-game, just standard upscaling option, which you can set that in intervals of like just basically percentages. So like, the rendering resolution, if you want it at 50%, for example, if you're running a 4K screen, you would render at 1080p and then upscale the image to 4K. And this is obviously a trick to save on performance without sacrificing UI elements, without sacrificing the overall presentation as if you're running a game at 1080p. If you don't like that, which I didn't found, I found it to be decent at what it's doing. It's definitely not the best. One step above that is the AMD FSR, which is available on both AMD and NVIDIA cards, which is basically AMD's version of that system that also upscales and offers a bunch of qualities. And then at the top is NVIDIA DLSS, which is only available on RTX cards from NVIDIA. And in my experience, this has been the cleanest image, though not always the most performant. If you really want to push this game to its max, like you want to squeeze every inch of performance from this thing, I found that DLSS on ultra performance, which the game actually tells you what resolution that is, what resolution the game is rendering at. So when I was playing at 4K, that was 720p for ultra performance. That got me the closest to the 120 FPS. I'm running on a 9700K i7 and a 3080 Ti. That basically, I was never able to get it to locked 120 FPS, but it is pretty close. Like it will usually hover between like 90 and 110, depending on like the area, depending, whenever a lot of reflections or like kind of alpha effects on the normal, like the blades and the axe ice effects. When that stuff kicks off, yeah, you'll see like a couple frames here and there getting lost. But overall, the game is pretty smooth. Like I found it to be incredibly smooth, with one exception, which is the stutters. These are not common. They only occur as you're loading into an area. I've put 40-ish hours into the game, and they've only really interrupted combat once or twice, and that was rare and kind of like you may never even run into that. These usually happen at like big areas because the game is trying to load stuff in the background. So if you're kind of having a fight in an area with like a little bit of an indoor, and then you open the door, and then there's like a little bit of an outdoor, yeah, if you try to kite enemies through that kind of doorway, you might hit a stutter here and there. But usually the stutters arrive in the form of, you're riding an elevator, and then you look at the frame counter and it dips from 90 to 60 and then back to 90 again. Or like you're opening a big door to like a new area, or you're doing, traveling between realms in a travel room, you will immediately notice these stutters. They're annoying. I have not found a way to eliminate them. I have the game on a Gen 3 NVMe SSD, so there's more than enough throughput for there to be no problems whatsoever, but it seems just the game just is not optimized to take advantage of that, so you just basically get a faster version of what happens on a PS4. I will say that the loading times for both from like completely cold booting the game, loading into a save, dying, respawning, and loading a save from like within the game are pretty snappy. Like the longest I have seen was something like 8 or 9 seconds for like the absolute longest. The rest of them happen in game. They're hidden behind a lot of dialogue and a lot of like transition screens that are kind of annoying when you want to get to it, especially in the end game. But they're pretty much like that's pretty much the God of War experience if you have played those games. One other thing I will mention here is that there is no FOV slider, which really bummed me out, and I know it's going to annoy a lot of people. This is another holdover from PlayStation. If you've been following that game, you'll know that they were really fond of their intimate, really close camera for Kratos. The same problems that existed on PlayStation exist here as well, especially, and I would even say that they're kind of exacerbated in certain instances because the effects and the quality of everything on screen is a little bit higher. It can be hard to see the hit indicator that are usually on the bottom of the screen, and they were really like a great solution to begin with. So if you're hoping that this would solve that experience, unfortunately it doesn't. You will, however, get a much smoother frame rate, which helps with, especially with these Valkyrie fights in my experience, and pretty much across the board. And if you have an NVIDIA RTX GPU, you'll also make use of NVIDIA Reflex. And there's even like a little tool that you can enable that alerts you when like latency reaches a certain threshold. If you really want to minimize latency from the controller to the frame render. I'm not really that hardcore to care about that stuff, but turning it on, you can turn it on and off in the same way that you would with any other game through the control panel, except the options available in game directly. I have not found it to be like a massive difference, but also I was usually playing it at 4K around in the realm of like 90 FPS with DLSS, so I didn't really feel the need to go like to had to reduce latency. But anyway, it's pretty much a standard board. Unfortunately, there is no exclusive full screen, but it's kind of all right, really, because like the game is not really like a performance hog to the point where you really need to squeeze every inch. Like every ounce of your hardware. So yeah, it's really it's fine. It runs really well.
Hey everyone, Durrani here. The footage that's coming up might be considered a spoiler. I'm gonna let Sherif continue now.
On my hardware, you can easily get it to 60 FPS on mid-budget hardware, like like something from even a few generations back, like a like a 2060 or a 1070 can get that game probably to 60 FPS, especially if you consider DLSS. Which I have been using in some of my time with the game, and you can see some of the footage. It's just like in motion you won't notice it, and it saves up on a lot of performance. And it's kind of sometimes there is no dedicated anti-aliasing solution in the game, so maybe you want to use it. Last thing I'll say is there's no downscaling option, so the highest you can go is your native resolution. You cannot downsample an image. which is a little unfortunate. But you know, it's not a major deal again. But yeah, like you can remap your controls on keyboard and mouse, but not on controller. For some reason, if you connect the controller, the game just grays out the custom keybinds menu. So you can only remap controllers if you're playing with mouse and keyboard, which I don't know why you would, but just to say you are, you will be happy to know that you can rebind those keys. On controllers, you have pretty much the options that you get on PlayStation, which is swapping the buttons between the Dark Souls style bumpers and triggers to the normal X and Y, and swapping the dodge from the A to B, from B to A. Like all that stuff is really, you know, it's really standard from PS4. And also you'll notice like a lot of things have carried over in these menus from PS4 and PS5. You know, so just the audio settings and the HDR, which the game does support HDR on PC, provided you turn it on in Windows. It's just a lot of really standard stuff that's as it was. Overall, really great time to replay that game for me. At least I'm just enjoying it, just going through it. I'm nearly at the end of it now, and I'm having a lot of fun, especially with the Valkyrie fighters, because I can play the game at not 30 FPS. So that's great for me. And if this is like the first time that you're playing the game, it's a fantastic jumping off point, especially if you play it at a minimum of 60 FPS. And like for people who have played it again, I think it's a good time to revisit, especially with Ragnarok coming this year. So enjoy the footage and see you soon.
He's adorable.
Huh?
It is the way of the world.
Oh. Well, that's sad.
Be ready! Atreus, to me.
Okay, I'm coming.
Nice shot.
You okay, brother?
Father, use this!
We are done here.
Wow. It's like there was an entire city under the water.
Aye, lad. A forgotten city.
What was it called?
Well, I forgot.
You want a beach here? The voice! It's just around this corner. Oh. It's a great big sword. It wants to know if we're ready to train? The gate's closed.
Prepare yourself, boy.
Yes, sir. Brother, right side!
Another wave on the left. Wouldn't it be nice to find some incense just once? The smell of brimstone gets old quickly.